Hello. I'm sorry that we're late this morning. In fact, we're late by almost 15 minutes. And the reason being is that the system woke up with a headache and it wouldn't behave. So I've just been rabbiting on for almost 15 minutes, not realizing that we went live. We are now. We'll truncate our program this morning. We will end at 8:30 because those of you who are faithful and watch us if you stayed with it just to see what was happening and what was wrong, then indeed you would miss some of it. Ho ho ho! What a pity. So let's start off by reminding everybody who isn't from this area who Mirador is. Well, good morning. It's March the 1st, 2021. Not the best year so far, but let's hope with March the 1st we've got a bright new dawn because there is some promise from the Prime Minister's schedule for getting out of lockdown. If we can stick to that, then I can see a glistening foam of beer at the end of the road. However, let's start off with some COVID headlines because always, whenever we see bright lights, there is something that looms on the horizon to worry us. And there is now a Brazil variant case in England, which is particularly virulent, and it's also capable of skipping through the defences. So officials are now hunting it at a great rate of knots. Don't know how it got here, and hopefully they can contain it before it starts another alert and another round of this dreary being locked in. When it comes to the rise in the virus, officials are going to shut down car parks at the beachfront and at the seaside and along the coast, for that matter, because wherever there's a rule, a law, you can always guarantee that people will try to get around it. And they've been getting around getting together and having picnics and that sort of thing by driving into parking lots just to look at the view, except that they look at the view together. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous for us all. Because despite the fact that these variants creep in, we are doing quite well, both with the vaccine, and we're the best in the world with the vaccine, with the jab, by far the best in the world. And we're really doing extremely well on that. We must pat everybody on the back for that. But also, there are still areas that we've got to worry about. Crawley apparently is one that is keeps nudging being at the top of the league table. Lewis, where we're emanating from this morning, is not doing too badly. We're lowest in the region by percentage wise as well as cases, and we're not, fortunately, a place that people flock to. This is a delightful town, I can tell you. As a tourist, you should come here and take a look. It's very historic, probably the most historic anywhere in the country. It's incredible, and it's tucked away, so we don't get great crowds coming to the beach the way that Brighton does and Eastbourne does, and other venues along the coast. So we don't have quite the same problem of people hugging and kissing and bringing hampers and so on. I don't mind the hugging and kissing, but since we've got to do it at a distance, it's better that you blow a kiss here and there rather than actually embrace somebody. But then that will end if we keep at it. I said when I was, as the Jamaicans would say, you're beating your guns. In other words, for 15 minutes this morning, I beat my guns before I realized that the system wasn't working. And when I was beating my guns, in other words, talking to myself, I mentioned that I had been in lockdown not only from home, where I live on my own, but also in the office, where because of circumstance, I'm now on my own. So I'm going from one lonely place to another with very little intercourse with anybody. I have had a couple of people drop by who are perfectly qualified to drop by because they needed to do some special work, and they just happened to know me. So at least I've been able to chat. And when I ventured out just to get a cup of coffee, a takeaway coffee, I have bumped into friends taking in the sun because it's been a very pleasant day or weekend. But I'm afraid that other than that, I've been in lockdown the same as anybody else, and I know how tough it is. It is. It's not easy. It's bloody hard, in fact. But I'm luckier than most because I've kicked around the world. As a journalist, I've lived in strange places: Bosnia, Kosovo, Romania, where you normally are provided with a little apartment and you stare at the walls anyway. You get to know the people in restaurants and cafes very well. Your workmates normally they've got their own homes to go to, so you only spend the day with them. You have to fill in your nights and your weekends doing other things to keep yourself from going stir crazy. So I've had a bit of experience, but I found it very, very tough as well. So when it comes to COVID, not all good news, but nonetheless moving in the right direction. And if you'll just grasp the nettle and stay in for a little while and not go canoodling at the beach or wherever people canoodle and not have illegal raves and so on and so forth, almost seem funny at the moment. But if it actually damages our society, you have to accept future responsibility. I'm old, you know. I'm not have to look at the next 10 feet. Well, maybe it's maybe if people can, I can bother the world, as I say to my friends. Unfortunately, by the way, it's 7:53 for those of you who like a time check now and again, and it's very pleasant outside. It's overcast. I'm looking at my famous tree. It's rocking just a little bit, so there's a bit of wind. It is cold this morning. It was cool, but it's about 2 degrees, I think. But it is going to rise during the day and not do too badly. Anyway, I digress. Watch out for what you do with COVID because it is still dangerous. There's an extra 1.6 billion for vaccine rollout. That's a lot of money, and the government is spending a lot of money. And the MPs, our MPs, are getting a bit excited because they now beginning to stare at another election. Okay, it's what 2 years away, and only 2 years away, and that in political life is a very short period of time. And if the government fumbles the ball, they are the ones that take the brunt of it. Cabinet ministers normally are in safe seats; they go back to work, whatever. But some of the outlying people, where it's marginal, will lose their jobs, and they're beginning to worry when the chancellor says, "Oh, I'm going to hit this group and this group and this group with taxes," because the last thing when you're broke that you want anybody to say to you is, "You've got to pay an extra levy." So MPs are beginning to worry about that, and the budget comes in the next few days. Well, certainly this month. So we have to watch out for that. Um, Beach car parks, yes. Oh, and the other thing that is a bit of a concern for us, I think, is that the biggest job losses have come around areas around airports. Okay, East and West Sussex they have two, one major, one minor. Uh, and if you like, we live around one of the major airports, Gatwick, and the jobless numbers have risen dramatically in those areas. So many of us rely upon the airports for work, and the airports have literally slowed down. The other one is Shoreham, of course, and we although that's small, it still generates jobs. It doesn't matter how small. We're small, and we generate jobs, and we've lost some of those jobs, um, and it adds to the total. So airports, media, we really are having a tough time, and that means there is a spin-off to those people whom we employ. So let's hope that something is done about that. Um, I think that's mostly the. And COVID jabs could reach 1 million in Wales this week. So the vaccine program, let's say that is really very successful. That is a good thing. Now we still lay claim to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, I guess, even though they've shown scant interest in the lands which they've inherited. Ha ha ha! Doesn't quite work that way, but nonetheless, he was the governor. He was our chief, and he's decided to go and live in California or wherever, and he's fallen out with his family. And part of the rift is the Oprah Winfrey show. Now, I've got a clip, and because everything had got a headache, I got 6 or 7 clips this morning to show. And of course, the system decided to wake up and be difficult. But I hope that I've actually got a little clip from the Oprah Winfrey show, or at least what CBS, the television network in the States, who is going to show this, putting out. So there is a little bit of something, and I haven't actually had time to even watch it. So we'll take a look and see what they have to say. But basically, if you're a sentimentalist, and what I don't approve of is the two of them tampering with our constitution. The Republicans are rubbing their hands with glee, as one would, but Republicans are just a point of view about how we're governed. And I don't subscribe to that personally, and a lot of people don't. We think that the royal family, even though they've got themselves into a right pickle, is that the system is the right one. Yes, it needs reform, but the system is the right one. Just the same as in many parts of the world, other countries believe that their system is correct, even though we may well have disapproved ourselves. I've lived in Moscow for a couple of months at a time over a period of 3 or 4 years. Got to know the people reasonably well, got to know the system reasonably well. And there are dissenters, of course, to President Putin, who has tampered with the constitution in a most undignified way, as far as we're concerned. But nonetheless, the people in Moscow or in Russia aren't that upset. They believe that he's looking after their interests. So before you go tampering with a system where you change it once every 4 years, and where you have somebody who is a partisan politician in charge, look at what happened in the Americas. Do we really want, despite the fact he's still got a considerable following, do we want a President Trump? So think twice before you actually howl for a Republican system. It's 7:59, and I'm just going to see because it looks as if we've got we've got a message from Gary Doynton. He says, "Good morning, Keith. White rabbits. Ah, well, white rabbits. What is that for Easter, Gary? Not sure what the comment is about white rabbits, but you normally make very sane and sensible comments whenever you contact me, which you do fairly frequently. So if you want to come back on and leave another message, by all means do. Love to hear from you, and love to hear from anybody else for that matter. But let's see, as we come up to the news time, whether in fact the news this morning is as it should be for us with Harry and Meghan.
You know, for me, I'm just really relieved and happy to be sitting here talking to you with my wife by my side, because I can't begin to imagine what it must have been like for her going through this process by herself all those years ago, because it has been unbelievably tough for the two of us, but at least we had each other.
So, Sunday, March the 7th is the full interview. I can show you a bit more, I think, because we started it at the appropriate place. Why don't we do that?
You know, for me, I'm just really relieved and happy to be sitting here talking to you with my wife by my side, because I can't begin to imagine what it must have been like for her going through this process by herself all those years ago, because it has been unbelievably tough for the two of us, but at least we had each other.
So there you are, our Duke having a chat to Oprah, causing great consternation within the royal family. But you know, I can see both points of view. If somebody started to talk about my family and me, and all they did was they highlighted the bad points, is I'd look like a real rotter. Whether I am or not is quite beside the point. Some people would say, yes, he is. So other people would say, I can't believe that's Keith, or whatever. It's easy to take little bits and pieces and paint a picture, either good or bad. And that's, of course, what PR people do. But I wonder also whether Harry doesn't have a point, because within the royal family, I'm quite sure the same sort of things happen. In fact, I'm privileged to be able to talk to people who have, well, not a foot in the palace, but certainly an ear in the palace. And I get some inside views. And the picture that comes out is of factions to some extent. And those factions obviously defend themselves to the bitter end, depending on their belief. And don't we all do that? Wow, Keith, you really let loose this morning, haven't you? Anyway, we had all sorts of clips, as I said, and the main story really is coronavirus. And do be careful. I'm not going to be careful. Try to be sensible. As there is a wonderful phrase that came out of, I think, the Second World War, and it said something like, "Rules are for the observance of fools and the guidance of wise men." Now, if in fact you say, I am not going to be a fool, I am not going to observe these things to the letter of the law, then when you're going to break a rule or bend it or go around it or whatever, make sure that it is in your interests and in the common good. For instance, I mean, what strikes me is if you live and work in the United States, and I have in Canada, so I'm fairly familiar with that society too, is there's a term known as jaywalking. To jaywalk is to cross the road in the middle of a block. To cross the road, you have to go to the end of the block and cross either with a light, or the car is obliged to stop if you step off and you walk across at the corner. The motorist is aware, the pedestrian is aware. But if you cross in the middle and jaywalk, very satisfyingly, you don't have to walk to the end of the block. You get between 2 points in the shortest way. But if a car hits you, who's the winner? So, observance of fools or the guidance of wise men? Think about it before you go trotting off to the beach and forcing, actually, the powers that be to close the beach, to close the car parks, because it's one of the things that people have seen as a way around. So Let's get rid of me talking a little bit, shall we? And let's. Um, I just love this clip because I know what's going to happen, and you can see it already. We're going to eventually get to a situation where we will forget about the heroes of COVID. But here are some of them. And lest we forget, it's almost as if, well, some people have called for. Uh, Now, this is interesting because somebody is calling and they know very well that I'm on the air at this particular time of day. Does it stop them? No, because their computer says that they should, right? Yeah, that's right. The computer says they should. So they do. And it's just so much rubbish and so much nonsense. But anyway, that just shows how computers have taken over our lives. Because when I phone them back, they'll say, "Oh dear, it was the computer." That's no bloody excuse. If you can't control your computers, don't use them. Yeah, you. Right. No, let's just. What I was saying is, we forget our heroes very quickly. And as a generation comes along, they can't understand why we made them heroes in the first place. So let us just for once remind ourselves of who our heroes really were, particularly in the first part of this outbreak of the pandemic. He said. Yeah, the system is very slow this morning. I do apologize for it. Mind you, 9 times out of 10 is because of me being ham handed. I like to think that I'm a fair journalist. I like to think that I'm a fair broadcaster. But when it comes to the technology, particularly modern technology, I have to learn it all over again. Not all over again. Never knew it in the first place. I didn't grow up in that generation. So I am a bit ham fisted. But this morning, it is the system. It is just slow. I'm punching all the right buttons and it's taking time to kick in. So please forgive me. Please forgive the system. But let us realize that one of my bugaboos, if you like, is that banks and financial institutions normally use computers and let the computers use them. They set things up and then wash their hands of it. So if anything goes wrong, they really are very. Gary's back. White rabbits bring good luck for the month. It's an old wives' tale. Well done, Gary. Thank you. That's very good. I didn't know that. I've not heard that. My white rabbit has always been in Alice in Wonderland. I'm late. I'm late. Got a very important date. No time to say goodbye. Hello. I'm late. I'm late. I'm late. And we were late this morning. We were almost 15 minutes late on the air. And I do apologize. And once again, it was because of the headache that the computers seem to have developed over the weekend. I don't think they were on a drinking binge because nobody was on a drinking binge. At least if you were doing it at home. And I urge you not to do that either. Getting used to solitary drinking is let's see. We've had two from Gary. So yeah. Anyway, thanks Gary for that. I have to sort of go back to my bits and pieces, otherwise I can't access video. And it is a typical Monday morning, isn't it? Nothing ever works. And I was saying that actually one of the things that one of the things that I remember a friend, well, a colleague saying to me when I was doing some consulting for British Airways a number of years ago, and he said, the big problem is that, and he pointed out to one of the 747s, but it could have been any aeroplane. He said, they wake up with a headache. You push the starter button and nothing happens. And by the time that you've actually got it fixed and got that aeroplane ready to fly, an hour or an hour and a half has gone by, and the whole schedule is thrown into chaos. Because in the airline industry, it is very complex. It's not, oh, well, we've got the thing fixed, off you go. Is you missed your time slot for leaving. You have to get into a queue. You have to beg the tower to give you a little space to take off. So just a little hiccup can be far reaching. And it's the same with us. A little hiccup throws us all out. So I haven't got a lot of the video that I wanted this morning that I actually had saved. I haven't got a lot of the, uh, what should we say, the auxiliaries, the things that help me along in an hour. And how are we going? Oh, it's 10 minutes past 8. But even so, I've been going only 25 minutes this morning because of the late start. But it throws everything out. And so you have to struggle with it. But then it's not a bad thing sometimes to have that publicly put out to view, public view, if you like, because we all have that. The alarm doesn't go off, right? The door jams, the car won't start, and our whole day is thrown into chaos, and it never improves. No matter what happens, when a day is in chaos, it never improves. And it just one of those things that is a given, if you like. And my other one is what can tangle will tangle. I can put two pieces of string at the far end of a room, and by the time I've actually finished the day and gone back, they managed to tangle. I don't know whether you noticed that with all the cables that we have to have now, but still. Is we must not let technology overtake us. We must let it help us. And that's one of the lessons I hope that we'll learn from lockdown, because the computers are the worst enemies. The computers are the things that send these nasty reminders. You are 10 seconds over when you should have put money into the bank to pay your bills. Bing, £12. Bing, don't dare do it again because we'll come and spank you. I mean, do you need that when you're looking at the spare wall? How many people and there is a lot of financial hardship around. It doesn't matter how much cash the government has splashed. There is a lot of financial hardship. Do you need people reminding you, sometimes on a Sunday, that you owe tuppence? No, you don't. And I think there should be a list. We should name and shame those organizations that do such things. I mean, I could name and shame two or three, but you have to do it in an orderly way, because some of these organizations do some things well. You don't want to blacken their reputation just for some things that they don't do well. But when it comes to computers, I believe that we have got it the wrong way around. Computers are running us instead of us using computers to deliver a really first-class product, whatever we happen to do. And that goes from local government up to central government, into industry, into finance. Is we need to look at how we use computers, because the way that they use at the moment is iniquitous. There are a few things that come out. Boris, I never fail to mention this, that Boris, just before the last election, said that our governance was not fit for purpose, right from the top to the bottom, from Westminster down to the parish councils, and that needed an overall review. Well, I agree with him. But of course, nothing's been done because of COVID. But quite often, I mean, the local council, for instance, I sat next door to one of their leaders, and I say one of their leaders because she has been leader, but now has passed the control to somebody else. But she was just an ordinary citizen at that stage, interested in politics, and sitting next to me in the public gallery. And she was appalled, as was I, the way that the cabinet system works, introduced by Tony Blair in 1997 or 98 or thereabouts, where you have a small group of people in charge of this elected council of many dozens of people. But nonetheless, you have the cabinet system. How dreadful it is. And she agreed until she found herself in power. And then there were excuses as to why the cabinet system works. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't work on behalf of democracy. Whatever else, it doesn't. What it does is it works on behalf of a small number of people who have decided the way we should live. And they want no discussion. They don't want us to debate these things. And this is a good way not to, because getting through the layer of government to talk to the cabinet as such is open government. You just don't kill yourself. Anyway, we're waxing lyrical. It is 8:15. It's a nice morning. It looks as if it's going to be half decent. The weather forecast is for a relatively dry day with a bit of a breeze. But otherwise, we should be able to knock the weekend's sun, but certainly not an unpleasant day in the main. Oh, dear, dear, dear. So I think it is time for us to, I know everybody gets freezes when I say this, but we really do need to remind people who pay the bills. And that's one of the things we have to do. And I hope that you'll stay with us while we do that. Here we go. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-da.
When you've missed the train, don't despair. Have a nice cup of coffee. And perhaps a mince pie. At the Runaway on Lewes Station. After that, why worry about the next train? The Runaway on Lewes Station. Relaxation beyond compare.
Okay, let's just get the official weather. I've given you a roundup of after looking at my tree and the moss on the bark. But right now it's nudging about 6 degrees. It's going to go up to 11 during the day, and we are going to get a burst of sunshine from somewhere around 11 o'clock through to 3 o'clock. Oh, actually, through to 5 o'clock. The guts of the day, in fact, is going to be sunny again. And it doesn't matter whether it's warm or not. The fact is, it's bright and it's cheerful and it's lifting people's spirits. And you feel like saying good morning to people as you pass them. Be careful how you pass them, and be careful still how you break the COVID rules about going out. But nonetheless, it's going to be pleasant out there. So 8 degrees, 6 degrees right now, 11 degrees probably the maximum. And then at about 6 o'clock tonight, it will slip back. But not a bad night, a clear night with a new moon. And is it a new moon? Yeah, well, it looks like it. It's only a sliver of a moon anyway, with some scattered cloud. It will go down to 4 degrees tonight, a bit cooler than of late. So when you get up in the morning, it's still a bit shivery. So watch out for that. And the wind is. I looked at my famous tree, and it was nodding a wee bit, but it's going to be about 10 knots for most of the morning. But it's going to start to reduce at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, and it will start to ease so that tonight still a bit breezy, but down to only 6 knots, and that's quite bearable. So there we are. That's the weather for Lewis, and that represents probably mostly along the coast this morning. Okie dokie dokie dokie. I think having looked at the weather, what I would like to do is to remind you of a couple of the people that we have coming up. We today is a new day after we finish this broadcast this morning. One or two little housekeeping things to do, and then we are going to have what they say, a summit meeting to see where we're going to go. We've got lots of good ideas. The important thing is can we garner the money to introduce them? That's it. Doesn't matter even whether you're using a computer or whether you're using people. Is it all costs a little bit, and we do need to get some money in before we can start to splash it to send stuff out. But we have got some good plans, and based really on talking to a lot of you to find out what you wanted and what you didn't. You've told us what you think is rubbish. You've told us what you would like to hear and watch and so on, and what we can bring to you. And we're going to try and reflect that. And here's one that gardening is very popular at the moment, and we have one of the most popular gardeners in Sussex.
Good morning, peeps. We're back in Hailsham after 3 weeks. I've had a few issues going on with health and various other stuff, but back to full strength again now. Gardens are looking good. As you can see, the rain is here to help things grow. So our little perennial garden in Hailsham that we've been working on for the last few months is now really coming together. We've got enormous hollyhocks growing. The alliums are all out, cicerantiums. It's an absolute blast of life now, and we're still not in the main growing season. So another few weeks, it will really come to life. So as you can remember, we planted courgettes and peas and sugar snaps in the outside bed. So the courgettes are now flowering, and the sugar snaps and the peas are doing remarkably well.
Well, there's Alex Hall. And actually, it doesn't show in that clip, but he's not the boss of that program. His dog Joey is. So it's Joey with Alex. And a delightful little puppy he is. He's about 14 years of age now, and he behaves like a puppy. He's spirited, and he's lovely. So if you like dogs and you like gardens, catch that show. It should be coming up before the end of this month. Some of these things do take a bit of time, even with a little operation like us. They do take a time to get underway, and we hope that we can, in some ways, because of the fact that the government seems to ignore I don't think us specifically, but our sector, when it comes to assistance, is we are finding it taking time to claw back from what have been for most people a disastrous January and February. But we are getting there, and hopefully we can start to bring some of the things to you that we always plan to, and that will intrigue you and will help you. And don't be afraid to say, I want to come on your program, because you can. It's fairly simple, actually. You if you tap into Mirador Television, Lewis, you'll see on this particular system that we use as an area where you can actually just send a message, and we're very happy to have you do that. And Gary Toynton has been doing that this morning, and he's a good man. He's been a faithful follower of Mirador Television for a couple of years, and I believe he works for the Royal Mail, and so he tapped in today, and several others have. Strange enough, the number of people that have really got cracking and talked to us have been from the west coast of Canada and the west coast of the United States. And strangely enough, when our international system is working, which it isn't right now, but hopefully it will be back very soon, is we have a man in Patagonia who just follows us avidly and sends in little messages of support. So there we are. We are international, big in Lewis, big in Patagonia. It's 8:26. My goodness me. My rabbiting on has filled some time. I hope that it hasn't bored you too much, because when the systems do wake up with a headache, there's not much that anybody can do about it. I'm here alone in the studio from about 6:30. I struggle manfully with what I can to get things going, but I run out of time. And I have to get going. And then suddenly we find that for the first 15 minutes we're not broadcasting. So I had a wonderful time talking to myself. Gosh, I'm an interesting person. No, I'm not. I've bored myself silly. I was glad when we get back on live so I can talk to you. And you've had 42 minutes of me, and it's 8:26, and all is well with the world. Well, let's put it this way. We seem to be forging ahead with COVID. But as usual, there is something which raises its ugly head, and that is a new Brazilian strain, which the authorities are getting used to the fact that this virus is a very clever virus. Is we stop it on one side and it finds a way through to another. So do continue to be very careful. That's really the headline news as far as COVID is concerned. MPs are getting excited that the Chancellor is going to try and start to pull back some of his money by taxing those people that he shouldn't tax. And they're getting particularly unhappy about that because whether they like it or not, this government has got an election to fight in the not too distant future. Okay, for a year or two, well, yet, but it will have an election to fight. And it has to present its case extremely well, which it hasn't in many ways. That has been its downfall. It's the way that it's presented things. It's managed to contradict everybody along the way. One says this and one says that, and they're contradictory. So who do we believe? And that's one of its big failings. But nonetheless, it has done an excellent job in terms of the vaccine, and we continue to forge ahead. And I think it's Wales will hit its millionth vaccine this week. So throughout the country, apart from the fight that goes on north of the border with Nicola Sturgeon, but at least she's had her mind taken off fighting with Boris by fighting with Alex Salmond. That's a real row up there with all sorts of political accusations about conspiracies and people spreading the dirt, as it were. Those are the things that are around this morning. Airports, or if you live around an airport, or the people who do work normally around an airport, have suffered rather poor economic circumstances, because around airports, one of the biggest areas of job losses in the country. Hopefully, they will all surge back once we start to go on holiday again, once people start to travel by plane again. But then again, I hope that those people who are supposed to look forward, the analysts who can tell us more or less what we should be looking at, they don't claim to be crystal balls, but by the same token, they have a pretty fair idea from these stats and from the information they can get, which the rest of us can't, is what's coming. And let's hope that that's not going to be too bad, and that the Chancellor does not have to raid our pension pots and our wages and so on and so forth, try and claw back his largesse. It's great to be able to splash the cash while you've got it. When you actually need to get it back in, wowee, that's something different. That is something different indeed. So there we are. It's always 8:30. I have to go. And I'm so sorry about Monday morning being Monday morning. But then again, perhaps you're grateful that Monday morning for me was Monday morning, because for a lot of you, Monday morning will be Monday morning. The weekend wasn't bad. The weather was nice. You could at least go out into your garden if you didn't go anywhere else. And we watched some decent rugby for those people who are rugby fans. Well, if you're English, let's not talk about it then. Let's just remind everybody who we are and say toodle pip. And tomorrow, I hope that we will be back on track and we can bring you much more pictorial news than we did this morning. But as Harry and Meghan said to Oprah, Harry did not want his wife to go through the torture at the hands of the royal family, the torture that his mother, Princess Diana, went through. And a lot of people will resonate with that. They will say, yes, Harry, it's not a bad thought that you're having. By the same token, I'm quite sure that the royal family will come back, and nobody was blameless in this thing. They were all at fault. But then again, that was a family affair. The big problem with the royal family is when they have a family affair, it spills over to the rest of us. So that's it for this week, for this day. We might come back a little later in the afternoon if we've got some interesting stuff to show you. But for the moment, this is who you've been watching. See you tomorrow. Ta-da.